Hey there guys, how's it going? Welcome back. Today's tutorial we're going to be working with Adobe Illustrator. It may be the first time some of you have heard of this program. And of course, with everything that Illustrator has to offer, one of the major things we're going to be working with is the pen tool. So because you guys already know Adobe Photoshop, I figured learning the pen tool should be one of the first things you do in Illustrator before we continue with anything else. So let's get right to it. Alright, so the first thing you're going to notice is that my Adobe Illustrator is completely different than yours. That's because I'm using Adobe Illustrator CC 2017 and you're using Adobe Illustrator CS5, who knows, old. Anyways, the pen tool is going to be this one here, and Adobe Illustrator has improved a lot over time. So as you can see, I have like all these like little purple lines that are coming out telling me that I'm doing straight lines and intersecting lines and stuff like that. None of that shows up in Adobe CS5. So I'm going to be showing you the correct way to go ahead and use the pen tool. The very first thing you're going to want to do is if all this looks different, I'm just gonna go ahead and reset my workspace, switch it over like this, hide everything, and I'm gonna click right here where it says layers. Go ahead and bring that out so I see my layers. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and make this a little bit bigger. So you see layer 1 and guides as well. So your guides are this like blue little lines that you see around here, and then we also have layer 1, which is this entire layer right here. Now what we're going to do is create a new layer. Make sure that it's at the very top, and we're going to lock these layers. That way when we click to move it, we don't accidentally move the paths that we are going to be tracing out. Now in layer 3, we'll go ahead and grab our pen tool. Now one of the things that's different between Photoshop and Illustrator is the way this little toolbar works here, which is your color toolbars where you choose your colors. You notice when I put my mouse over this one, it says fill and then a letter X, and this one says a stroke with a letter X. So right now, if I were to say, for example, start drawing a shape, you see that it starts filling it in with black. If I were to delete that and just use the arrows to switch it, I now have a stroke. So if I start coloring it in here, you'll notice that instead of it being filled in, I now have an outline that is black. That is one of the major differences of the way these colors work. So if I were to put this to red, I could now do this if I were to create a shape. Have red with a black outline. Now if you can't see the outline, I can go ahead and up the stroke size, and now you can see red with black. So that's one of the major differences. So what we're going to go ahead and do is, if you have a color right here in fill, you might end up having white. Just make sure that you click you do not want a fill, and just click on your stroke, double click, and just switch it over to like a bright color. It doesn't matter which one you choose, so long as it's not green. I'll just go ahead and go with red, and I'll switch my stroke size to around 5 points, and that should be good enough for what we're doing. So the first thing we're going to do is our angled lines. Now this is pretty simple. All you're going to do is click, 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 click until it's done. Try to get it as close as possible as you can, so I'll go ahead and zoom in. By the way, to zoom in, you just press Control plus on your keyboard, and that zooms in. Control plus and Control minus will zoom in and out. So I'm going to go ahead and click here, then come down to this one and click. Up here, click, 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 click. Now if you make a mistake and you accidentally do something like that, then what you want to do is just press Control Z, and that goes back in time. Or you could also press Delete on your keyboard, and that will erase the last one you did, but then you'll have to make sure you click on that again so you can continue drawing. So we'll go ahead and continue here, and we are done. So now we're going to go ahead and work with our next one, which is broken lines. Now with broken lines, what we're going to be doing is learning what we have down here, which is Shift Control A. because if you notice in mine, like I mentioned, in CS5 they made a lot of in CC they've made a lot of changes. So you can see that my line is still active. If I come down here to try to work with it, you're gonna see that I start creating these lines that will never end, right? So in order to stop this one from being active, you need to press Shift Control A, and that deselects your line. So in this next one, that's pretty much what you're practicing to learn how to deselect. So you click here and there, and then Shift Control A, click here, here, Command Shift A, or Control, sorry, Control Shift A, Control Shift A, Control Shift A, Control Shift A, Control Shift A. So there you go. Now we have these dotted lines. And now for our next one, we have Shift. As you can see in mine, there's pretty much no way that I can not get this to be perfect, but there is. Look, for example, if I click here, it may seem like it's straight, but if you zoom in, it's not straight, and I went all completely wrong. So the way that you do a straight line, if you're working with straight lines, is to just hold Shift. The moment I hold Shift, look what happens to the line. It goes straight up because it's gonna align to this point right here. So what you want to do is make sure you hold Shift, click, and then now you have your straight line. So I'll go ahead and put Shift Control A and deselect it. So in this one, we're just gonna practice holding Shift, which is probably the most boring of all of them, but I'll show you a trick right here. So Shift and select, Shift Control A, click, Shift, click, Control A. Make sure you're holding Shift and Control A. So now what we can do is grab our selection tool after we have 3, select those, and watch. This is a trick, so don't get ahead of yourself, just pay attention. If I hold Alt on my keyboard, I get this like black and white mouse the moment I put it on top of one of these lines. And I can now move it across. If I hold Shift, I guarantee that it'll stay straight, and I can place it there. And a shortcut to duplicate is Control D. So if I press Control D, it'll just duplicate these out for me, and voila, there you go. So now you have straight lines. On this next assignment, on this next one, we have this little castle wall. And the way we're going to do the castle wall is by pressing here, and we're going to just be practicing with our Shift. So throughout the whole time, you're going to hold Shift on your keyboard and just go ahead and continue right here. So continue with holding Shift and just do the entire castle wall. There you go. And so now we're done with this first one. So Shift Control A, and we can now continue to working with curved lines. Alright guys, so now we can go ahead and move to this next section, which is our curved lines. And the first ones are semi-balanced curves. So they're not entirely balanced. And the way we're going to be doing these is, and you've worked with the pen tool before in Photoshop, so I hope you at least kind of have an idea, right? We're going to go ahead and click on our first point. And as you can see, my Illustrator is already creating a straight line. So I'm going to go ahead and click here at our second endpoint. But instead of just clicking, I'm going to hold it. And as you can see, if I hold it, I start creating the handles that will curve the line. So I'm going to just pull in this direction until I see that the line is getting curved correctly. And right around there, that looks good. And I'll let go. And again, we have a gap right here, so I'm going to go ahead and put Control Shift A and deselect. And I'll just go ahead and continue here so you guys can practice to do the rest of these lines. You can watch me as I do it right here. Command Shift A, and then do this next one over here. And then click and curve it out, and Command Shift A. So in this one we have this unbalanced curve. and this ones have like a really strong pull right here that they curve kind of crazy. So same rules apply. Click on the first one, then click on the second one. But now you'll notice that you have to like kind of curve this kind of awkwardly here, and just Control Shift A. Do the same thing over here. Click and click. Remember, if you make a mistake at any point, just press Control Z and you can go back in time and fix your mistake. So Control Shift A, click here, and then see how this one kind of curves out a lot. You have to stretch it out a lot. So Control Shift A, just keep that in mind, and then click here at the bottom, and you pull this all the way down until you get that curve right there. So Control Shift A. Well, so now we have those. And then the next ones is using Shift to create perfectly balanced curves. So in this one, if we just click here and then click here, you know, you might think that you got it right, but as you can see, I'm kind of off by a little bit, and it's kind of hard to get it just perfect. So if you hold Shift, it automatically gives you straight lines, and you can just bring that over until it's right there. So again, Control Shift A, click here, hold Shift, click and hold Shift, and then just drag it out so it's straight. Control Shift A. So just practice these over and over again until you get them right. Click and then hold Shift and just drag it down straight to the bottom, and then let go. Control Shift A, click, and then click up here and hold Shift, and then just drag up until you get that right, and then Control Shift A. Now, it may seem difficult, but I'm explaining everything there is that you need to know. So restrain yourself from asking for help on anybody that's around you. Just if you mess up, Control Z, try again. Whatever mistake you're making, you know, go back and retry it until you get it right. That's the only way that you're going to be able to learn and get this correct, because we're going to be working with the pen tool a lot from this point forward using Adobe Illustrator, and I really want you guys to get the hang of this before we can move forward. If not, I'll just continue giving you more and more basic tutorials on how to use the pen tool. So now we can move on to page 3, which is multiple point curves with the pen tool. So in this one is just, you know, how to continue curves and finish them up all the way to the end. So in this one it's just free form, so there's no specific way of drawing it. It's just free form. What we're going to do is use these little lines here to go ahead and use those as our point section so we can continue the line moving forward. So the first thing is we'll start here, and you see my line. This doesn't show up in yours, of course, but I'll go ahead and click in this little section, and I'll just curve it in this direction. Now what I want to do is I want this half right here, this half on this side, to match the line I'm making. So I'm not going to point this down, I'm not going to point it that direction or random. I'm just worried about this one following the curve. There we go, that's perfect right there. So from here we're going to go ahead and click on this one over here, and then just continue this to where the curve matches perfectly. As you can see there, that starts to match perfectly. Awesome, right there. And then we'll go ahead and continue. Click here. And remember, I'm only concerned with this bottom part that I'm doing. Then I'll click here, and I'll turn this upwards right around there. Then I'll click here, and I'll bring it in this way, and then finish it off. So this might be a little bit difficult, but just try your best. There we go, and then Command Shift A. And as you can see, it's slightly off there, but that's okay. And once that's done, then you can go ahead and continue on, going on to the pieces of a circle. Now in this one, we're going to be using Shift to create these shapes. So we'll go ahead and click here, our first one, and then we'll go to our halfway point. So from this halfway point, we hold Shift and we create a straight line. Now because this is already a straight line and this one goes straight down here, all we have to do is click one time, and it automatically does the perfect curve. So now here we'll go ahead and curve it out ourselves, and then we'll click here and it curves out on its own. So then Control Shift A, then we'll do this one, click here, go to our halfway point, hold Shift, and then just bring it down here, and then Control Shift A. Then we'll do the same thing for this one, hold Shift, bring it down here, and then click here and it automatically curves perfectly, Command Shift A. Then we'll go ahead and continue here. So these ones are big ones, little ones that we're going to be practicing with here. So this one's a little small one right here. Then bring it down here. So just make sure that you're holding Shift as you're doing this ones. There you go. And then Command Shift A. So just remember, hold Shift, do the perfect lines, watch the video as many times as you need to if you don't understand something that I'm doing. But please refrain yourself from asking for help in this little part. Try to figure it out from what I'm telling you in the video and from what you're doing. So go ahead and click here, hold Shift, click on this one, make sure you do a straight line, and then close it up. Control Shift A. Then we're going to come here, click, and hold Shift. On this part, if we were to try to bring it over here, it'll do a curved line. Now the reason why that's happening is because our handle is still pointing down. What we need to do is get rid of that handle in order to be able to continue this way as a straight line. So the way you do that is when you put your mouse over that little anchor point, it'll remove that current handle, and then now we can do a straight line in this direction. And then we'll go ahead and come here, hold Shift, and then go ahead and press on our anchor point again, and we can now do a straight line in this direction. So that's something, this is a little new right here, so just make sure you keep that in mind, and Control Shift A. So we'll do that same exact thing over here. Click here, hold Shift, and bring it this way. So now if we try to click here, it won't work. If we try to curve it, it won't work. So we have to make sure that we click on our anchor point inside, and then now we can come here, hold Shift, and there we go. And the same thing here, we try to do this, it won't work because that's not what we're trying to do. So we'll go ahead and press on our anchor point, and then click here, and there you go. So now that we have that, Control Shift A, and we can move on to this mixed curved and straight lines. So this one has a mixture of curves and some straight lines. So you'll be working with, deleting those handles in this one. So keep that in mind as we're working on it. So the first thing we'll do here is hold Shift to create a straight line. And as we hold Shift, we can hold Shift to create a perfect circle. And then we can just press one time down here, and then just continue. Hold Shift to create a straight line. Hold Shift to create a perfect circle, and then just press up here. And then Shift to create a straight line, Shift for a perfect circle, and so on and so forth. And we'll go ahead and continue this until we're completed. There you go. So now that we're completed here, we'll go ahead and press Command Shift A or Control Shift A in your keyboard. And now we can move on to our last one, which is number 4. We're going to be working with reflex curves using constrained angles, and then shape tracing the walls, ceiling, floor techniques. So the first thing we're going to do here is go ahead and come this way. So we're going to go ahead and click on our first point, and then click on our second point, which is over here, and just curve the line to where it matches. As you can see, there we go. And so now again, if we try to bring it this way, we can't do that. So what we're going to have to do is get rid of that anchor point and come here and then fold it this way. Get rid of that anchor point and create it this way. Get rid of the anchor point and bring it this way, get rid of that anchor point, and this way, get rid of that anchor point, and let's see if this one works. I believe it won't, but let's see here. So as you can see, this is not enough to create this curve. So what we're gonna have to do is kind of go halfways here, create this curve, and then bring it down here so we can create the other one. And then we'll go ahead and continue. Delete the anchor point, bring it down here, delete the anchor point, bring it here, delete that anchor point. So in this one, we're working with deleting our anchor points to continue the shape and pattern. So we'll go ahead and do this, delete that anchor point. So this is pretty much to get you all to practice that, you know, every now and then you have to create what's called a reflex curve, and those curves you need to delete the anchor points from there. So we'll go ahead and bring that this way, delete right there, and then finish it off by bringing it up here. And there you go. So now we can press Ctrl-Shift-A, and we can go ahead and continue and, you know, continue doing the rest of these. Ctrl-Shift-A. So now we're going to be using reflex curves using constrained angles, and we'll go ahead and continue that. So constrained angles just means you hold Shift as you're doing this on some of them, and so you just pretty much want to continue. So I'll go ahead and click here. So this is pretty much all the ones that we've learned so far. Hold Shift this way, then Shift this way, click here, Shift this way, and then click here. You can see I messed up, so I press Ctrl-Z, hold Shift, delete your anchor point, hold Shift, Ctrl-Z, delete the anchor point, hold Shift, delete the anchor point, hold Shift. So I'm hoping that by the time you get to this one, you're kind of getting the hang of the pen tool a little bit. And then just hold Shift, hold Shift, delete the anchor point. Let's try up here. There we go. Delete that anchor point and hold Shift. And then Ctrl-Shift-A. So this one is a lot of like holding Shift, deleting those anchor points, and so on and so forth. So in this one, shape trace, wall ceilings, and floor techniques. In this one, you're pretty much going to be using these little patterns to help you see where you need to click in order to create the shape. And it also tells you in which direction you need to move your handles so that you can continue moving to the next part. So we'll go ahead and start right here in the center, and then click in this one right here and just move it downwards like that. Then we'll go ahead and click in this one and then just follow the handles with the pattern right there. Click in this one and follow the handles. Click, so on this one, as you can see, it won't work, so we need to delete the anchor point. Click here and then just move it like that. Delete this anchor point, click here. That doesn't work, so we'll go ahead and click here. There we go. Perfect. Delete that anchor point, click here, fold it upwards. Delete that anchor point, click here, fold it this way. Delete that anchor point, click here. So from here, don't delete the anchor point, just click here, move this downwards. Doesn't seem to work, so I'll go ahead and delete the anchor point then, and then just create it myself. Doesn't work perfectly, so I made a mistake. I'll go back once, click here, bring this down like that. That looks pretty good. That works a little bit better. And then just delete that anchor point and close it off. So now that you've done that, a little mini test would be to try to create this one on your own. See if you can complete it. And once this is done, then you can save this as an Illustrator file. The way you're going to save these exercises is going to be you're going to come down here to your layer 1, and what we're going to do is go to File, Save As, and we're going to go to Pen Tool Exercise, my finished files, and I'm going to switch this over to a PDF, and I'm going to name it as Pen Tool 1, save, and then save the PDF. And then I'm going to go ahead and move this over this way. And I'm holding shift, by the way, and then just move this guy over here. So all I want is the red lines, and go to File, Save As, and I'm going to save this as part 2. And I'm saving it in the wrong place, by the way, so I'll go ahead and fix that. So then now I can move these out of the way, and I'll bring these in. Hold shift so that it stays straight, and I'll go ahead and put that there, and go to File, Save As, and save that one as 3. Save it and move it out of the way, and then just bring in the last one once you've completed that last little part, and just bring that over, hold shift, and once it's in here you go to File, Save As, 4, and you go ahead and turn that into Skludge. And that's all for today, guys. Hope you guys learned how to use this pen tool in Adobe Illustrator, and we're going to start creating some really fun stuff, tedious but fun stuff in Adobe Illustrator. So stay tuned for the next one. See you.